The first sensation that pierced through the fog of unconsciousness was pain, a deep, throbbing ache that seemed to emanate from every fiber of her being. The second was the strange, alien scent that filled her nostrils, clean and metallic, nothing like the familiar ozone-tinged air of her home station. Zara Keth's silver-blue eyelids fluttered open, revealing pupils that dilated rapidly as they adjusted to the soft, warm lighting above her. Where was she? The last thing she remembered was the screaming, her own voice joining the chorus of terror as the Void Reapers tore through the research station's hull like it was made of paper. She remembered the way the emergency lights had cast everything in hellish red, the way her colleagues had fallen one by one, their telepathic death cries echoing in her mind long after their bodies had gone still. She remembered reaching for the emergency beacon, her silver-blue fingers slick with her own luminescent blood, before everything had gone black. "Easy there," a gentle voice said, and Zara's head snapped toward the sound, her natural telepathic defenses slamming into place. The voice belonged to a creature she had never seen before, bipedal, like her own kind, but with strange, peachy pink skin and eyes the color of rich earth. His hair was dark and slightly mussed, as if he had been running his hands through it, and when he smiled at her, the expression transformed his entire face. "You're safe now," he continued, his voice carrying a warmth that seemed to resonate in her chest. "I'm Marcus Reed, and you're aboard the Serenity. We received your distress signal." Zara tried to speak, but her throat felt raw and parched. The being, Marcus, seemed to understand, reaching for a small cup on the nearby table. "Here, just small sips," he said, helping her lift her head slightly. The liquid was cool and tasteless, but it soothed the burning in her throat. What are you?" she managed to whisper, her voice carrying the musical undertones characteristic of her species. "Human," Marcus replied simply, settling back into the chair beside her bed. "We're part of the Galactic Relief Corps. We specialize in emergency medical response and refugee assistance." Zara's silver-blue skin shimmered slightly as her emotions shifted, a variant trait that humans would find beautiful if they knew to look for it. Fear, confusion, and something else she couldn't quite identify swirled within her. "The others, my research team." Marcus's expression grew somber. "I'm sorry. You were the only survivor we found. The station was." He paused, searching for gentle words. "There wasn't much left when we arrived." The weight of loss crashed over her like a tidal wave, and Zara felt her telepathic barriers wavering. Marcus must have sensed her distress because he leaned forward, his hand hovering uncertainly near hers before settling gently on the blanket beside her arm. "You don't have to be strong right now," he said softly. "Grief it's something that needs to be felt, not pushed away." Such words from her own kind would have been seen as weakness, but from this human, they carried only compassion. Zara found herself studying his face, the way his brown eyes crinkled slightly at the corners, the gentle curve of his mouth, the way he seemed to radiate calm in the midst of her storm. "How long have I been here?" she asked, deflecting from the pain that threatened to overwhelm her. 3 days. "You were in pretty rough shape when we found you, severe lacerations, internal bleeding, shock. We weren't sure." Marcus trailed off, then continued more firmly. "But you're a fighter. Your body responded well to treatment." Zara glanced down at herself, noting the unfamiliar medical wrappings and the strange devices monitoring her vital signs. "Your technology is very advanced. We've learned a lot about xenobiology over the years," Marcus explained. "The Corps has protocols for treating dozens of different species. Though I'll admit, you were my first Therian patient." "How did you know what I was?" "Your physiology, the bio-readings, the way your skin changes color with your emotions." Marcus gestured gently toward her arm, where the silver-blue hue had indeed shifted to incorporate threads of deep purple, the color of sorrow among her people. "It's actually quite beautiful." No one had ever called her grief beautiful before. Among the Therians, emotion was something to be controlled, channeled, never displayed so openly. Yet this human spoke of it as if it were art. "I should contact my homeworld," Zara said, though the thought filled her with dread. How could she explain the loss of an entire research team? How could she face the questioning, the blame? There's time for that later, Marcus said gently. Right now, you need to focus on healing. The body, yes, but also. He tapped his temple. Up here. Trauma leaves wounds that run deeper than flesh. Zara studied him with new interest. You speak as if you know. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his hands clasping and unclasping in his lap. I've seen a lot of survivors over the years. Each one carries their pain differently, but the healing, that's universal. It takes time, patience, and usually the help of others. And you help them? The survivors? It's what I do, Marcus said simply. What we all do here on the Serenity. We pick up the pieces, help people put themselves back together, give them a safe place to figure out what comes next. Something in his tone made Zara's empathic senses prickle. But who helps the helpers? The question seemed to catch Marcus off guard, and for a moment, his carefully maintained composure slipped. We manage. That's not an answer. No, Marcus agreed with a rueful smile. I suppose it's not. He stood, checking the readings on her monitors with practiced efficiency. You should rest. Your body is still healing, and pushing too hard too fast will only set you back. As he moved to leave, Zara found herself speaking before she could stop herself. Marcus. He turned back to her, eyebrows raised. Thank you. For saving me. For being kind. The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise after the longest night. You don't need to thank me for that, Zara. Kindness isn't something you earn, it's something you deserve, just for being. After he left, Zara lay in the soft light of the medical bay, thinking about his words. In her culture, everything was earned, fought for, proven. But this human spoke of kindness as if it were air, freely given, essential to life itself. For the first time since awakening, Zara felt something other than pain and loss. It was small, fragile, barely more than a whisper in her heart, but it was there, hope. And strangely, it was tied to the image of warm brown eyes and gentle hands, of a voice that spoke of her grief as if it were beautiful, of a soul that seemed to understand something about healing that her own people had forgotten. Perhaps there was more to these humans than she had ever imagined. And perhaps, in learning about them, she might discover something new about herself as well. The sound of metal striking metal echoed through the engineering deck as Nira Velas brought her crystalline fist down on the workbench, sending tools scattering across its surface. Her normally pristine features, carved from what appeared to be living diamond, were marred by angry fractures of red light that pulsed beneath her translucent skin. I don't need a babysitter, she snarled in heavily accented standard, her voice carrying the musical chime characteristic of the Zephyrian people. Especially not some primitive human who probably learned engineering by hitting things with rocks. Jake Harrison looked up from where he was sorting through a collection of plasma conduits, his oil-stained fingers pausing in their work. His weathered face, marked by years of honest labor, showed no offense at her words, only patient understanding that somehow made Nira's anger burn even hotter. Good thing I'm not here to babysit then, he said mildly, returning to his sorting. Captain just figured you might want something to do with your hands while you heal up. Sitting in the medical bay staring at walls gets old pretty quick. Nira's crystalline features shifted through a spectrum of colors, from angry red to frustrated orange to something approaching embarrassment. The truth was, she was going stir-crazy in the medical facility. Her people were builders, creators, shapers of matter and energy. Being idle felt like a slow death. Fine, she said through gritted teeth, the sound like wind chimes in a storm. But I work alone. I don't need instruction from someone whose species just discovered faster than light travel 5 minutes ago. Jake's lips quirked in what might have been amusement. Fair enough. I'll just be over here if you need anything. He gestured to a bank of damaged power relays. These beauties got fried when we pulled you out of that wreckage. Nothing too complex, just standard energy flow restoration. Despite herself, Nira found her gaze drawn to the damaged equipment. Her people had been working with energy matrices for millennia before humans had even discovered fire. The crude human repairs were obvious, inefficient, wasteful. Her fingers itched to fix them properly. "Your methodology is all wrong," she said, moving closer despite herself. "You're treating each relay as an isolated system instead of part of a unified flow network." "Huh," Jake said, genuinely interested. "Show me." The simple request caught her off guard. In Zephyrian culture, knowledge was hoarded, traded, fought over. Masters guarded their secrets jealously, and students earned understanding through years of servitude. Yet this human asked as if her knowledge were a gift to be shared freely. You want me to teach you? If you're willing. I've been working on these systems for 10 years, but I've never had the chance to learn from someone who really understands energy flow. This is a pretty unique opportunity." Nira stared at him, her crystalline features cycling through colors of confusion. "What do you get out of it?" Jake shrugged, wiping his hands on an already dirty rag. "Better repairs. A chance to learn something new. Maybe you get to feel useful instead of sitting around being frustrated. Seems like everybody wins." Such simple pragmatism. No hidden agendas, no political maneuvering, no complex social calculations. Just straightforward human logic that somehow made more sense than anything she'd heard in years. "Very well," she said stiffly. "But don't expect me to slow down for human limitations." What followed was the most engaging 3 hours Nira had experienced since her rescue. Jake proved to be a surprisingly quick student, his calloused hands gentle and precise as she guided him through the intricacies of energy matrix manipulation. He asked thoughtful questions, made intuitive leaps that impressed her despite herself, and, most remarkably, treated her expertise with genuine respect. "There," she said as the final relay hummed to life, its energy signature smooth and efficient. "Proper flow patterns. These will run at 93% efficiency instead of your previous 67%. "Incredible," Jake breathed, running a diagnostic scan. "The power savings alone will extend our operational range by weeks. How did you learn to work with energy like this?" "All Zephyrians are born with some degree of energy sensitivity," Nira explained, her pride warming despite her attempts to remain aloof. "My family were master builders on the crystal spires of Zephyr Prime. I was trained from childhood to shape and channel energy patterns." "Was trained?" Past tense. The warmth in Nira's chest immediately cooled. "My family is gone. The spires fell to orbital bombardment 6 months ago. I was off-world on a supply run when it happened." Jake's expression softened with understanding and sympathy. "I'm sorry. That must have been." "Don't," Nira cut him off, her crystalline skin flashing bright red. "Don't you dare pity me. I don't need your human sentimentality." "Not pity," Jake said quietly. "Grief. There's a difference." "Is there?" The question came out more bitter than she'd intended. Pity is feeling sorry for someone you think is weak. Grief is honoring something beautiful that's been lost. Jake set down his tools, giving her his full attention. "Your family must have been pretty amazing to teach you what you just showed me." Something cracked inside Nira's chest, a fissure in the crystalline shell she'd built around her heart. "They were the finest energy shapers in 3 systems," she whispered. "My mother could make a crystal sing symphonies. My father built bridges of pure light that spanned kilometers. My younger brother, he was going to surpass us all." "What happened to you after?" Jake asked gently. "Refugee ships. Camps. Processing centers. Eventually, I hired on with a salvage crew, not for the money, but because working with broken systems was better than not working at all." Her voice grew harder. "The crew turned out to be pirates. When we were caught by patrol ships, they sold me out to save themselves. Claimed I was the mastermind, that they were just following orders. Bastards," Jake said with quiet vehemence. "It doesn't matter now. They're dead, and I'm here, somehow. Nira looked around the engineering bay, noting the clean, efficient design, the careful maintenance. This is a good ship. Well cared for. She's home, Jake agreed. Has been for 8 years now. Captain recruited me after I got burned out on corporate engineering, too much politics, not enough actual building. Here, we fix things that matter, help people who need it. And you enjoy this? Living in a metal box, drifting through the void? Jake smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. Come on, let me show you something. He led her through corridors she hadn't seen during her brief time aboard, past crew quarters and storage bays, until they reached a set of double doors marked, Hydroponics Bay. The doors hissed open, and Nira gasped. Inside was a garden that defied every expectation she'd had about human space travel. Rows of growing plants stretched in every direction, their leaves green and healthy under full-spectrum lighting. The air was warm and humid, rich with the scent of earth and growing things. It was impossible, impractical, a waste of space and resources. It was beautiful. I built most of this, Jake said, pride evident in his voice. The environmental controls, the automated irrigation, the nutrient distribution systems. Took 3 years to get it right. Nira walked between the growing beds, her crystalline fingers trailing over leaves and flowers. Why? Food synthesizers are more efficient. This must consume enormous amounts of power and space. Because efficiency isn't everything, Jake said, kneeling to check on a row of tomato plants. The crew needs this, something alive, something growing, something that connects us to where we came from. And the fresh food doesn't hurt either. Your people are strange, Nira murmured, but there was no venom in it now. She watched as Jake gently adjusted the stake supporting a heavy-laden plant, his movements careful and protective. You waste resources on beauty. Do we? Or do we invest in what makes life worth living? The question hung in the air between them as Nira continued her exploration. She found herself pausing at a section dedicated to flowering plants, roses, jasmine, something that looked like crystal flowers from her homeworld but couldn't possibly be. Are these Zephyrian singing crystals? Jake confirmed. We picked up seeds from a refugee ship last year. I've been trying to get them to bloom, but I think I'm missing something in the harmonics. Nira reached out with her energy sense, feeling the subtle vibrations of the crystalline plants. They were alive but dormant, waiting for the right frequency to awaken them. Without thinking, she hummed a low, thrumming note her mother had taught her, letting her natural abilities shape the sound into the pattern the plants needed. The response was immediate and breathtaking. The crystal flowers began to glow, their faceted surfaces catching and amplifying the light as they bloomed in slow, graceful spirals. As they opened, they began to sing, a hauntingly beautiful melody that seemed to resonate in the bones. My God, Jake breathed, his face illuminated by the soft light of the flowers. They're incredible. Nira found herself smiling for the first time in months. My mother would have loved this. She always said that beauty shared was beauty multiplied. She sounds like a wise woman. She was. Nira's smile faltered slightly. I miss her. I miss all of them. That's not something to be ashamed of, Jake said gently. Love doesn't die just because the people we love do. It just changes shape. They stood together in the garden, surrounded by the gentle song of the crystal flowers, and for the first time since her world had ended, Nira felt something like peace. This human understood things her own people had forgotten in their pursuit of perfection and efficiency. He understood that sometimes the most important things couldn't be measured or optimized. Jake, she said softly, her crystalline features cycling through shades of blue and green, colors of calm and growing trust. Would you like me to teach you more about energy work? I mean, properly teach you, not just quick fixes. His face lit up with genuine enthusiasm. I'd like that. I'd like that a lot. As they made their way back to the engineering bay, the crystal flowers continuing their gentle song behind them, Neera realized that something fundamental had shifted inside her. The shell she'd built around her heart had developed new cracks, but instead of making her vulnerable, they were letting light in. Perhaps healing wasn't about becoming invulnerable again. Perhaps it was about learning to trust, to share, to let others help carry the weight of loss. And perhaps, in this strange human with his oil-stained hands and generous heart, she'd found someone worth taking that risk for. The communications array hummed with electronic whispers from across the galaxy, distress calls, trade negotiations, diplomatic chatter, and the endless background static of a universe in conversation with itself. Kira Thorne adjusted her headset and tried to focus on the frequency modulation scrolling across her screen, but her attention kept drifting to the figure hunched in the corner of the comm center. Dex Morpheus sat with his back to the wall, his form flickering between shapes like a candle flame in the wind. One moment he appeared almost human, tall, lean, with angular features and dark hair. The next, his edges would blur and shift, revealing glimpses of his true Nexary nature, fluid, malleable, beautiful in an alien way that made Kira's breath catch. "You're doing it again," she said softly, not turning from her console. "Doing what?" His voice carried the harmonic undertones of his species, even when he was trying to sound human. "Hiding in the corner like you're afraid someone's going to notice you exist." A bitter laugh escaped him, and his form solidified slightly. "Maybe because every time someone notices me, they decide I'm either useful or dangerous. Sometimes both." Kira finally turned in her chair to face him fully. It had been 2 weeks since Captain Torres had assigned her to help integrate their newest refugee, and she still felt like she was trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Dex had been found drifting in an escape pod, badly injured and nearly catatonic with trauma. The medical team had saved his body, but his mind remained locked in patterns of fear and mistrust. "What happened to you out there?" she asked, not for the first time. Dex's form shimmered, his carefully maintained human appearance wavering. "I told you. Pirate attack. My ship was destroyed. End of story." "That's not a story, it's a headline." Kira stood and moved closer, noting how he tensed as she approached. "Stories have details, emotions, truth. What you're giving me is a press release. Maybe that's all you need to know. Maybe. But it's not all I want to know." Something in her tone made him look up, really look at her for the first time in days. Kira had auburn hair that caught the light from the displays, creating a halo of fire around her face. Her eyes were green-gold, the color of earth forests, and they held a warmth that made his chest ache with longing for something he'd never dared to hope for. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why do you care what happened to some shape-shifting refugee?" "Because you're not some anything," Kira said, settling into the chair across from him. "You're Dex. You like your coffee with 3 sugars and no cream. You hum when you think no one's listening, always the same melody, something sad and beautiful that makes me wonder if it's from your homeworld. You have nightmares that make you shift forms in your sleep, but you also have dreams that make you smile." Dex stared at her, his form completely still for once. "You've been watching me. I've been paying attention. There's a difference." "Is there?" The question came out sharper than he'd intended, defensive walls slamming back into place. "Watching is what predators do. What people who want to use you do." Kira leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Paying attention is what friends do. What people who care about you do." "Friends." Dex tasted the word like something foreign. "I don't have friends." "You have at least one." The simple declaration hung in the air between them, and Dex felt something crack inside his chest. For most of his life, he'd been valued only for what he could become, the perfect spy, the ultimate infiltrator, the tool that could wear any face needed. His own people had traded him to smugglers when he was barely adult, payment for safe passage through contested space. The smugglers had sold him to mercenaries, who'd rented his services to anyone willing to pay. He'd learned to trust no one, rely on nothing but his ability to change, to become whatever was needed to survive. And now this human woman with fire in her hair and forests in her eyes was talking about friendship as if it were a simple gift freely given. "My name isn't really Dex Morpheus," he said suddenly, the words spilling out before he could stop them. Kira raised an eyebrow but didn't push. "What is it really?" "I don't remember." His form flickered rapidly, cycling through half a dozen appearances before settling back into his preferred human shape. "I was sold so young, passed around so much, that I lost track of who I was supposed to be. The slavers gave me the name Morpheus because of what I could do. I added Dex when I escaped because I needed something that was mine." "Dex suits you," Kira said after a moment. "It sounds like someone who fixes things, who makes them better." "I don't fix things. I break them. I lie for a living, or I did. Wore other people's faces, stole their identities, betrayed their trust." His voice grew bitter. "That's what I am, Kira. That's what Nexari do. We're living lies." "No," Kira said firmly. "That's what you were forced to do. That's what was done to you. It's not who you are." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've seen who you are when you think no one's looking." Kira smiled, the expression transforming her entire face. "You helped Chen in the galley yesterday, even though you didn't have to. You held your human form for 3 straight hours to make the refugees from Kepler Station more comfortable. You listen to classical music when you can't sleep because it reminds you of something good, something pure." Dex felt his carefully maintained walls beginning to crumble. "You really have been paying attention. I told you, that's what friends do." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the soft sounds of the communications array filling the space between them. Finally, Dex spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. "The pirates who found me, they weren't random attackers. They were hired by my former handlers. I'd run too far, stayed free too long. They wanted their property back." Kira's hands clenched into fists. "You're not property. Try telling them that." Dex's form began to shift again, his control slipping as the memories surfaced. "They had a cage designed specifically for Nexari, bioelectric fields that disrupted our shape-shifting, forced us to hold whatever form we were in when the field activated. They were going to sell me back to the Syndicate, back to a lifetime of being whatever other people needed me to be. But you escaped. I killed them." The words came out flat, emotionless. "All of them. I waited until they thought I was unconscious, let them put me in the cage thinking I was helpless. But they made a mistake, they caged me in my true form, not a human shape. And my true form is much more dangerous than they realized." Kira was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. When she spoke, her voice was steady, unchanged. "Good." Dex blinked, his form solidifying in surprise. "Good. They were slavers, Dex. They'd stolen your life, your freedom, your identity. They were going to do it again, and probably to others after you. The galaxy is better off without them. You're not horrified? Disgusted? I'm a killer, Kira. You're a survivor." Kira reached out slowly, telegraphing her movement so he could pull away if he wanted. When he didn't, she gently took his hand in hers. His skin was warm, human to the touch, but she could feel the slight vibration beneath the surface, energy patterns that spoke of his true nature. "And you're my friend." The simple acceptance broke something open inside Dex's chest, and for the first time in years, he felt himself begin to hope. "I don't know how to be anyone's friend. I don't know how to be anything other than what other people need." "Then learn with me," Kira said softly. "No expectations, no requirements. Just, be yourself. Whoever that is." "What if I don't know who that is?" "Then we'll figure it out together." Dex stared down at their joined hands, her fingers pale and steady, his shifting slightly as his control wavered. "It's dangerous, Kira. Getting close to me. My handlers, the Syndicate, they don't give up easily. They'll come looking eventually. Let them come. Kira's grip tightened, her voice filled with fierce protectiveness. This is a good ship with good people. We take care of our own. I'm not one of yours. Yes, you are. She smiled again, that radiant expression that made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he could be worthy of such faith. You became one of ours the moment you decided to trust me with the truth. They stayed like that for a long time, hands linked in the gentle hum of the communications center, two souls finding each other across the vast darkness of space. For Dex, it was the first time he'd ever felt truly seen, truly accepted for who he was rather than what he could become. For Kira, it was the beginning of something she'd never expected, a love that transcended species, form, and the scars of the past. Kira, Dex said eventually, his voice soft with wonder. Yeah. Thank you. For seeing me. The real me. Thank you for letting me. As the ship continued its journey through the stars, carrying its cargo of hope and healing, two hearts began to beat in synchrony, one human, one Nexari, both learning that sometimes the greatest courage lies not in changing who you are, but in daring to be yourself with someone who accepts every facet of your truth. The choice to trust, to love, to believe in something better than survival, it was a choice they made together, one moment at a time, building a future neither had dared to dream possible. To be continued in Part 4, The Bond.